Again, start with a couple of just injury updates from the game. Mentioned Kendra yesterday. Kendra suffered a concussion, so he'll obviously be in the protocol here. So we'll see where he shows up tomorrow, and we'll see where he's at with the concussion protocol. You guys saw Scantling went down there at the end of the game, just kind of a re-aggravation of his current injury. So that he checked out pretty good today. Unfortunately, Jalen Ford suffered a lower leg injury that's going to require surgery. So he obviously won't play here in the last game. He's going to have surgery here sometime this week. And so those are the guys really from the game. There's a couple other minor things that we'll get updates for today as the day progresses. But that's kind of what. And I know Peyton Turner was out as well. He's also had an ankle deal, so hopefully we'll see how he responds, over the next 48 hours or so. One update with Derek. So last week, at some point during the week, we tried to kind of simulate, what a game would feel like for him with that left hand. Just the grip strength, the functionality, all that kind of stuff, and goes without saying that didn't really go as planned, or else he would have played. So at some point again this week, earlier in the week, we're going to try to maybe see what that looks like again. And if he's able to do that, we'll kind of see where that's at. So, so anyway, that's kind of where we're at with the injuries and take it from there.
Two quick follow-ups.
Yep.
Fractured, was it fibula for Ford? Was it a fracture or was it?
Yeah, he actually, I think the initial x-rays was a fracture, and then he had to get some scans today and some MRIs to see if there was any type of ligament situation. So I have not gotten any feedback yet on the exact situation. So his recovery time will be predicated upon what happens with the ligament situation. But there was a fracture there that's got to get repaired.
And then with Derek, he wasn't far enough along last week. Was he not as far along as you expected last week?
No, I mean really. Yeah. Here's the situation with Derek. Derek again. We want to, it's a situation where they can numb the hand and see if his functionality is good. We can protect it and all that stuff. It was a matter of he didn't have enough as much function as we wanted him. He's been improving every day. Naturally, he wanted to play against the Raiders. I think that kind of goes without saying. We talked about that last week, so he was kind of motivated for that one. He's been motivated in his rehab since the day he got injured. And so, again, whether we do that tomorrow or Wednesday and see if he has that, better functionality and see if he can cope. So if he can't, we're not going to. Yeah, we try to do, simulate game type actions. So anyway.
What kind of function do you need to see in the other, like how can you test function?
Well, it's just more about taking a snap.
Yeah.
It's a grip on the ball. It's if you got to transfer from right to left, are you able to do all those things? Again, the protecting it's really not the issue at this point. It's really comes down, 100% to function.
As the guys we just talked to said, you're the guy that brings the juice and the spark to the team. Is that just you, or is that something that you actively kind of monitor and try to manufacture, or is it just happen with you being you?
I think it probably falls back to my personality. I try to be. I preach to the guys to be the same guy every day, and come in here with a great approach and a great attitude. I think it's probably in the 32 years I've been coaching, it's probably the thing that my MO, if you will, or it's my personality as well. Listen, you can't. Nothing great was ever accomplished without a great attitude and great approach, right? So. As sometimes things don't go exactly the way you want them, but that doesn't really change how you're going to, be the next day or be in front of the group. And then to me, that's all about leadership. You stand up in front of I have the privilege every day to stand up in front of that group, in front of that team, and deliver a message and to lead. And to me, the best leaders that I've ever been around, are positive. No one wants to follow Eeyore around the forest. And so we kind of make a joke around that. I always use that Eeyore analogy. No one wants to see Eeyore walk in the side door every day. That's just, we're not looking for that. And so I kind of always bust guys' chops if I see him be down or whatever. Come on, Eeyore, let's go. Everybody would rather be and follow Tigger, not Eeyore. So we kind of joke around with that. But all kidding aside, positive feedback, positive influence. Listen, I'm very demanding. At the same time, I don't think there's a guy in that locker room that knows that I don't love him, I don't care for him, and I don't want the best for him. And listen, people follow positive things, and people follow leadership. And if that's what they're doing, if guys are going to follow and I'm going to lead, then you're certainly going to do that with a great attitude. So I think that's what the guys are talking about. So when I say juice and spark.
How do you straddle that line between being demanding and showing them love and making sure that they know that the demands aren't coming from, like, how do you navigate those two emotions?
Yeah, listen, I heard a great expression when I was younger as a coach. There's an expression that is, guys really don't care what you know unless they know that you care. And so, I've always tried to use that as my, kind of, in the back of my mind. I always hear that quote. These guys out here, they really don't care about my knowledge. They don't know I care about them personally. So I've developed personal relationships with everybody, and I think they all know I'm coming from a good place. So listen, you guys have all seen the videos of me yelling at people, right? But I'm the same guy I'm the same, fiery son of a gun that's going to be right, in your face when you make a good play. And I think that, it's not always negative. It's you accentuate the positives. We watched the film from the team meeting today, in the team meeting, really watched a film from the game. And I point out a lot of positives. There was a lot of positives in that game. I know that no one wants to hear that. I know that's not the narrative right now because we lost 25-10 to the Las Vegas Raiders, so it's hard to say there's a lot of positives. Yeah, there was a lot of positives. We gave phenomenal effort in that game. I came here this morning early to watch all three phases, and I'm looking for guys that aren't giving great effort. I can't find them. I think the goal line stand by us is a great example. Demario Davis gives phenomenal effort to keep that guy out of the end zone. We talk about defending all 100 yards of the field, really 120 yards, if you will. And sideline to sideline, he keeps that guy out of the end zone. And here, Carl, first down, boom, makes a great play. Second down, Cam, boom, great play. Third down, we take away the pass option, we get a sack, force him to a field goal. So that one individual effort play by Demario was a 4-point play. Demario again and Ugo make a great stop on third down near our sideline that they challenge the spot. Ends up being 4th and inches. If those guys aren't busting their ass over there, to force that stop, well, then they don't punt. Well, what happens on the punt? We get a 21-yard punt return. We get the ball at the 50-yard line. 3 plays later, we're in the end zone. So all of that, ties together. And so there were a lot of positives. There were a lot of positives on special teams. Rico Payton makes an unbelievable effort play as a gunner. It's going to go under the radar. No one's going to talk about it. Beats a double team, knocks 2 guys on the ground, makes a tackle on a 50-something-yard punt by Matt Hayball. Those are the plays that we kind of highlighted today. Bink made a great play on a run stop. Offensively, we're some great effort plays on some run plays, backside blocks, things like that. So my point, I know it's a long answer, but my point is we're pointing out all those positive things. So then when we do correct and we do point out some of the negatives and we do have teaching moments, the guys know we're coming from a good place.
I just had a question about the practice schedule and the league roles. Like, how limited are you guys with what you can do with the league allows you to do this time of year?
Yeah, listen, I'm extremely comfortable with the way we're practicing lately. When I took over, it's really a 3-part answer, if you will. I mean, the first part is, how we're practicing right now is very, very relative to the rest of the league. I've in my job as an assistant head coach over the years, I've studied all 32 teams across the league on, reps and practice time and, how you worked, your tempo during the practice, breakup, offense, defense, special teams. So I'm very knowledgeable in that area. When I took over, the second part of it is, we were at a place where we had a lot of injuries. I know that's not a big secret, right? Took over at a time where our roster was kind of beat up, and so we had to keep that in mind. I mentioned that activation thing that we did. We incorporated. We had a ton of soft tissue injuries when I took over. Since I've taken over, we haven't had one soft tissue injury in a practice. We only had one in a game in the last 8 weeks, and that was a problem for us. We had a situation where we had 8 consecutive weeks in a row where we had somebody injured in practice that couldn't play in a game in the beginning of the season. And so we were dealing with a lot of stuff, not to mention all the injuries in the games. And so we had to find a very delicate balance on how we're going to be able to get reps, get quality reps, get the speed of practice at the same time, be very conscious about our injuries. And so that's the second part. And then the third part is, the general fans probably don't realize we're a little bit handcuffed by the NFL rules in terms of how many times you can have padded practices. So you're only allowed to have, a lot of people won't know, you're only allowed to have 14 padded practices for the entire NFL season. That was with the new CBA. You can only have 3 of those practices in the last 6 weeks of the season. You can never have 2 in 1 week. in a lot of the weeks. So you're very, very limited. So most people would say, wait a minute, you're only allowed to practice 14 times in pads the entire NFL football season? Yes. The answer is yes. So we get a lot of that work in training camp. A lot of that work, obviously, in the beginning of the season. We used a lot of those padded practices in the beginning of the season. So, once you use one, you have to check it off. So there's a little bit of limitation of what you can do. And then the last thing, obviously, is how many plays you're going to run, things like that. So, we're actually a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of how many plays we run during practice in comparison to the rest of the league. And so, like I said, I've done a lot of studies with that, and we had to find that delicate balance between staying healthy, activating our players, getting our work in. And if you look when I took over, listen, we won 3 out of the first 4 games. I don't think our practice, I don't think our practice situation really had anything to do with our performance. And the one game we lost, we were throwing the ball to the end zone on the last play to either win it or tie it. So, I know it's a long answer again, but we put a lot of thought. We put a lot of time and a lot of effort into exactly how we do things around here every day. And so all that kind of ties in, but a lot of it obviously ties into the situation with our injuries.
When you took over, you said there was an initial wave of emotion you knew would happen after the coaching change. Did you feel like the team ever had to fight through the second wave where things kind of settled down, I guess?
Yeah, I do. I think, I just mentioned that first 4 games, we won 3 out of 4. Well, okay, so then we lose Derek, we lose Alvin, we lose Taysom. And so I think there was that second wave of, all right, we lost our quarterback. Here we go. We got to do this now with our second and third quarterbacks and find a way to make this happen. And we got with some guys along the way, but we've lost some pieces, and we lose Eric, we lose Lucas. And so, was there that second wave? And I think that goes back to just being positive every day. As I pointed out to the team today in the team meeting, a lot of the things that we did yesterday in the game had nothing to do with injuries. We kind of shot ourselves in the foot a couple times. We jumped off sides on that third down early on, and 7.5 minutes later, they still have the ball. I think it was 14 more plays. So our offense is on the sideline. We're not giving ourselves a chance to score. We get the ball down, and I'm going to go for it on 4th down from the 30, whatever it is, yard line. We jump off sides. Now we're on the 42. Now we got a punt. We get a pass completion at a plus 35, and we're going to have 1st and 10, and also we got a holding call. Now we're backed up. It's like a 20-something yard difference. And so a lot of those things, with those situations, we can certainly blame the injuries and we can certainly blame the circumstances. But I've been preaching to these guys from the beginning about accountability and all that. So we're trying not to let that. But I think there was that second wave of hey, we got to find a way to get this done.
One injury I don't think we've asked you about in a while is Taysom. How is he doing with his rehab? How did his surgery go? Do you have any updates on that?
Yeah, I got all double thumbs up with the surgery. There was no complications. He is, obviously he's not that far out from surgery, so this first week or 2 is just kind of a slow. But he's, projected to make a full recovery and all that. He's got a great attitude about playing again and wanting to come back and doing all those things. So I think you guys know Taysom. He's going to attack everything with a great attitude, and if they tell him it's going to be a certain time, he's going to look to beat it and all that stuff. So we'll kind of see in about a month or so, he'll kind of have a better timetable for his return.
What have you made of the job Clint has done this year? For Clint, just what have you made of the job he's done this year, and what have you liked working with him?
Yeah, well, I love working with Clint. I think Clint's a great young mind, and has really done a great job with the situation, the circumstances. You look how we started the season. He was kind of working with all those pieces. We come out of the gate with a couple of 40-plus point games. And, listen, there might not be a coach in the building that's been more affected than him by the circumstances. And he's done the same thing. He's been the same guy every day, working his tail off, trying to be creative, finding a way to get it done. He's had to play a lot of moving parts on that side of the ball. This past week, no different. But listen, I think obviously Clint comes from a great coaching background. I don't know if there's a guy in our coaching staff that spends more time in the building and works harder at it than him. And I think you've seen a lot of creativity from him, throughout the season. No different than that touchdown we threw yesterday to the double pass to Foster. And I think he's done a great job working with the pieces he's had and a lot of moving parts.
Coach Rizzi, a lot of quarterbacks, one game to go, a veteran like Derek, dealing with obviously a painful injury. I'm sure a lot of people would, shut it down for the season. I'm sure quarterbacks have. But what does it say about Derek that he's trying to fight back and actually play when the playoffs are out? He's got a lot of cachet in this league, so there wouldn't be any problems if he did. What does it say that he's trying to fight back?
Yeah, I tell you what, that's why my respect level for Derek has gone up even more with him not playing than playing, because I see him in here every day, first guy in the training room, attacking the rehab, being adamant to me about, hey, Riz, wanting to come back, for his team, regardless of the playoff status. I think it says a lot about his character, a lot about his leadership, a lot about his want to, his competitiveness. And it's just, it's a shame because I'd love to see him get back out there. To this point, he hasn't been able to do that. But I think it speaks volumes to him as a person. You guys have mentioned some of that contract stuff before, which I really don't get involved in, but the easy thing for him to do would just be like, hey, I'm going to be done. And he's done the exact opposite. I think he wanted to prove that really wasn't in the back of his mind. He wanted to prove that I'm trying to get in here and get this done. And so, I again, much respect for him in that situation.
Where are you guys with Alvin Kamara this week?
Yeah, listen, I'm going to tell you, Alvin wants to play. So there's not going to be any secrets there. Alvin wants to play. I'm going to let the medical people kind of handle that and make sure, again, that he's able to. But I know he's in here and he's rehabbing, 3-4 times a day to try to get back. That's what he wants to do. So whether or not he's going to be able to do that and physically able to do that, that remains to be seen. We'll see how the next 48 hours kind of go and we can get him in and integrate him into practice. But I could tell you it's not from just like Derek. It's not from a situation where he's the first guy to text me after the game yesterday and kind of trying to keep my spirits up and stay positive and just continue to communicate with me about his desire to try to finish out the season and try to play. So we'll see if that's possible.
What'd you come away with after you were able to watch the film on Spencer Rattler?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. A lot of what I said after the game, I think, kind of held true. There's a bunch of plays that he makes in the game. There's a couple of throws that are really good throws. He makes that throw to Kevin Austin in the 2-minute drill with a guy in his face to get us in the field goal range. Thought he handled the 2-minute really, really well. I think he was 20 for 36, but let's be honest, we probably had 6 or 7 really catchable balls. That we should have caught, and all of a sudden that day looks completely different for him. 26 or 27 of 36 looks a lot different. There was some pass protection stuff where he had to get himself out of trouble. I thought he did a really good job 2 or 3 times of avoiding the rush and making a play. Unfortunately, 2 of those times in particular, we ended up getting penalties. Where he was able to actually avoid the rush, get outside the pocket, make a play with his feet, deliver the ball down the field for an explosive play, and one of them got down to the 1-yard line, and there's twice during that game where we have pass completions inside the 5 that get brought back for penalties. I mean, think about how much different that game is. And so that's kind of what I said. I think it's a little bit of a grade of an incomplete, quite frankly, because it's hard to give a true evaluation when we had the drops and the missed pass protections. I did think he missed on some throws. There were 3 throws that I told him and watched today with the team that the interception ball he throws too high, gets tipped up and gets picked off. The throw before the play to Juwan down, he missed Dante Pettis on an in route, and then there was a 3rd down throw to Juwan that he's got to make. So those 3 throws kind of stick out as throws. Man, we got to make those throws. We got to convert on those. But man, there were some plays that he made. So it's still a work in progress. You see the player, you see the plays, you see the positives. But as I said last week, like any young quarterback, you watch those 2 young quarterbacks last night in that game. If you watch that game at all last night, same thing. Young quarterbacks have a tendency to make some negative plays. Those are the ones you got to get rid of.
Well, it's been a pretty adverse season, maybe more than most. What have you kind of learned about, I guess, you and the locker room?
The locker room. Here, I'll start with the locker room. I had such a fond respect for our players before I took over as interim head coach, and my respect level has doubled because of the way that they've handled this situation, the character, the leadership, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The guys in our locker room that have been the best are our leaders and our veteran players. They've handled this situation tremendously. I've said the names before: Cam, DeMario, Alvin, Derek, the guys, Eric McCoy, the guys that have been playing a lot of football, our captains. They have been the glue to keep that locker room together, and so I've learned a lot about those guys. And the effort level that our players have shown in the last 7 games has been outstanding. Not good, outstanding, including yesterday. We didn't make enough plays. We didn't execute yesterday, but it's not an effort thing. What have I learned about myself? I've learned that it's difficult at times to lead in times where things aren't going great, but to be the same person every day is really important. That's some great advice that I got. I took this job, and I've learned that the players respect that even more. They respect the me being real. They appreciate the honesty, and I feel appreciated more than I even was when I took over. So those are the things I've probably learned, and that's coming from the locker room, and those guys have been phenomenal.
How about Chris Olave?
Yeah, well, listen, Chris is going to be right back in practice Wednesday, and he had a really good end of the week last week, and he's another guy that's like looking at me like, Coach, man, I want to get back. So we'll see where he is Wednesday, Thursday, and we'll keep that door open.
How close would you say he was this past weekend?
Well, listen, he looks like the Chris Olave running around that I'm used to. It's a matter of the conditioning level, getting him back, making sure the sports science people and the strength and conditioning people feel like we're good there, and then obviously the medical side, make sure we're not putting him in harm's way.
For the simulation that you guys do, is that before practice, or does it occur same time as practice?
Yeah, usually in those situations, blanket statement. Usually, anybody, any position, you would bring them out prior to practice, put them through some drills. Doesn't matter the position, and make sure that you integrate them into practice. We're going to be good. So you do that early on. With a rehab guy, you can do that. We can do that tomorrow. We can do it Wednesday before practice. We can do it whatever day we decide. So we would do that with anybody.
So if we see him out there Wednesday, that means he passed the simulation thing? Just making sure.
Yes, sir. Right. Yes, sir. If he's out there Wednesday with that red jersey, number 4 running around, that means he did well either yesterday or meaning Tuesday or Wednesday prior to. Yes, sir.
You mentioned with Clint Kubiak being the guy that was kind of most impacted by the injuries and everything like that. Obviously, the talent level and everything is its own conversation when it comes to starters versus reserves and everything. But I'm just curious, how much does it, if at all, limit a playbook when you're missing that many pieces on that side of it?
Yeah, listen, it definitely limits it. I'll speak to that from my experience as a special teams coordinator, because no coach in the building gets affected more about moving parts than a special teams coach, right? So you're looking about punt protection, you're looking about return calls and everything, and all of a sudden there's 3, 4, 5 guys a week that are kind of rolling through. That happens to special teams coaches all the time. So I'm very aware of how it affects, and sometimes you have to simplify things. Look at the situation this week with, Edward Solaire, for example, just got here. And how much can we get him caught up with our scheme? And so it's a challenge every week. You're going to give those guys menus of plays, no different than Kendre or any of those guys, the receivers that have been kind of the musical chairs group. And so it's a challenge for all the coaches at those positions. So it does definitely affect your play calling. I think you have to figure out at the beginning of the week, your menu and kind of narrow it down to your specific game plan. And that's what I mean when I say that, no one's been challenged more than him with all the injuries, because, offensively with all the moving pieces, you have to kind of slash some of the stuff out of the game plan. So you're definitely going to, that's a week-to-week thing when you're dealing with the injuries.
For a coach like Clint, and maybe this is just the nature of the NFL, but in Minnesota, he got 1 year as the coordinator, gone. Denver, he was the play caller a little bit there, gone. And this year, uncertain future. What do you just kind of make of that? And do you have to sympathize with him at all? How do you?
It's the nature of the profession, right? So I mean, I've seen a lot of great coaches, circulate through, and it's a matter of opportunity. It's from head coaches right on through all the positions. Coordinators, special teams, offense, defense, and so. It's a matter of what you make of your opportunities. You look at some of our head coaches right now in our league. First time out didn't do so well, and then all of a sudden, second go around are doing really well. There's been some recycled coaches at all positions, coordinators included, that have done that. So all you do is you learn from your experiences. Sometimes, failing at this thing isn't a bad thing, meaning it helps you in the future. And that's the humbling part of this game. At some point, we're all gonna have that, point where we're not doing so well, and that's the beauty of this game, is that it's such a deal where there's so many ups and downs, and learning from the experiences of the negative side, the losses or the games you didn't do great, I think makes you a better person, player, and coach. So, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.